Hey, today we're going to talk about everything related to roof removal on C4 Corvettes and topless driving and all the issues that go along with that. All right, check it out. All right, so when we're removing the roof, the first thing that you have to do is pop the rear hatch. All right, second thing is you have to have the tool to remove the roof. This is the tool right here. It's just basically a ratchet. It has like a Torx head on it, and you can tighten and loosen on this device right here. So this is the ratchet right here that we use, and the beauty of it is this is to tighten, this is to loosen. In fact, if you look at it closely, this says off here, that's to remove the roof, and on is basically to tighten it and put the roof on, of course. It's just a Torx head, neat little device that tucks right in. Okay, the neat thing also about the ratchet is once you're done using it, it goes into this compartment right over here, and it slides down and locks in just like that, and you close it and it's safely tucked away in your console. All right, with roof removal, you open the door, and the first thing is there's actually a method that you need to follow on this. So number one, get these things out of the way. You always have to remove the latch pins in the front here first, and you want to make sure this is in the off position, so that will loosen it. So we just go in here and we turn it, and you have to be patient with these things because they do loosen fairly quickly, but they take a lot of turns to actually free that bolt from the roof panel. Just a little bit longer. And then what I always do, once I get it to a certain looseness, I go over to the other side and then do the same thing. Got to get this thing to bite. There we go. And the key to this is patience. I mean, this isn't like a modern car where you can pop your roof in like 30 seconds. This is going to take a couple minutes. But I love it because it's very secure. You don't have to worry about servo units and things like that wearing out on these. Old school technology, baby. All right, so we get that pretty loose. I'm going to loosen this one up a little more. Now, I think Mid-America, I forget what they're called now. They're no longer called Mid-America. They have some kind of automated ratchet that just goes automatically. Okay, now I'm going to do the back ones. Okay, so what you're going to do is loosen up these back bolts next. And they only take about 3 or 4 turns, and they'll loosen up, and then you just can kind of spin it with your finger like this. And what's nice about the bolts in the back, you could see how far out they are, and you know if this thing's going to be loose enough to pop out. Now, you want to be careful with these back bolts because it's easy to strip this piece here. I actually did that to the one on the passenger side, and I recently bought some new bolts, and my buddy Dave gave me a couple too. So, okay, and this is the other bolt on the back, or the other screw, I should say. And you just loosen it up. Again, you want to be patient. You don't want to torque these things too tight because if you strip them, you won't be able to firmly secure your roof. And they're hard to find. Like, I had to wait for this on back order for about a couple months to get them. Okay, now is where you test to see if the roof is actually at that point where it can come out. So you push up, you see how that freed up? So now I know the roof will come out. So now we're going to remove the roof physically. All right, so the roof weighs a little bit more than you might think. On a C5, it's a lot lighter than this. I'm not going to say this roof is heavy, but you just have to be aware of what you're doing. You don't want to drop the roof. You certainly don't want to bang it into the rest of the car and scratch something. So it takes a little bit of delicate handling. So the way I do this is I get this part free right here. And then you always want to make sure this is going to be loose here. And now what I always do, I get this little corner out first, run my fingers in there, and then lift it up high. And the reason why you lift it up high, you don't want to hit the glass. And as you can see, this is not a small roof by any stretch. The other thing is, if you do this in the garage, make sure that you have a really high ceiling or your garage doesn't sit really low over the car, because you can damage the roof lifting it up. Now, the other thing you'll notice is this end is what goes into these grooves right here on the top. So you'll see the plastic grooves, and these are really often breaking on a lot of C4s. Mine are actually factory and they've never broken, nor on my dad's. So pretty happy with the luck I've had with it. So what you do is you carefully slide it in, just like that. And what it'll do is it'll go into this little groove here, and then this piece, this little latch pin, locks into it and holds the roof in place. Now, you don't necessarily have to keep the hatch, the roof in the hatch. You can leave it in your house or someplace else if you want. Thing is though, if you're ever driving somewhere and it starts to rain or maybe it gets too hot, you want to have the roof with you to put it back on. And you just simply close the glass, and you always want to close the glass here gently, just like that. One of the things I was alluding to when I had the roof in my hands is this piece right here. This plastic piece breaks quite easily. It's basically got a gasket in it. You can see the rubber there as it goes and shims itself along the roof line. So this whole plastic piece can break quite easily. So when you're putting that roof panel in, you always want to put that in very carefully. And right here is the piece I was telling you about that has this little groove that goes in, and it's like a latch pin that just goes right into the front of the roof, and it locks it into place. All right, so it's literally that simple. You remove the roof, and it's like you have a convertible. All of them, every C4 that you ever bought back in the day, that was not a convertible, of course. It was a coupe, which was the base models, the Z51s, the ZR1s. They all had removable roofs. That's what's so cool about C4s. And, you know, the advantage of it is you have a convertible. You know, you look up, what do you see? You see sky. It's an incredible feeling. It really is. It's a visceral feeling like no other to drive a performance machine like this without a roof. Now, I got really excited when I bought my car in February of '98. And I remember it was storming a lot that whole month, really, of February. And I actually had to wait 2.5 weeks before I could wash and detail my car, because when I first bought it, I wanted to do it immediately that weekend. But I couldn't do it because it was literally like 2 weeks of straight rain. But once it cleared up, I spent like probably 8 hours on a Saturday, that first Saturday. I went through everything with a fine-tooth comb, detailed the interior, took the clay block to the paint, polished it, everything. And I think I finished around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I remember seeing the top. That's when I got the idea to actually remove the top for the first time. So I did it, went through the whole progression and kind of learned as I was going along with this. There's an instructional video that GM has with these cars, and I watched it, but they didn't have all the tips that I'm giving you right now. That came from experience. Anyway, once I put the top in the back, and I sat in here and I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. So I got in the car and I drove it like 10 o'clock at night, and I went to like, I went to Safeway to buy food or something. No, actually, I went to Burger King. I'll never forget that. I don't normally go to Burger King, but I did then. And I went through the drive-thru, and it was an amazing experience, you know, getting food to go with your convertible Vette. Now, here's the thing. When I was driving back, I noticed something wasn't quite right. Now, I couldn't put my finger on it. I really couldn't say exactly what it was. But when I got home, I started wondering. The car didn't quite feel right. So I put the roof back on it. I took it out for another spin again, and it felt just fine. And I'm wondering, I guess it was in my head. Well, over a period of time, as I read a lot of articles about the upcoming C5, I realized, and they talked about this a lot with the C5, is that the structural rigidity of the C4 was challenged or compromised when you remove the roof. And that leads to the next phase of what we're going to talk about here today. Driving a C4 with the roof off, what to expect, what you're going to expect, and what it's going to be like is going to be two different things. So when you're first in here, like I said, it's amazing. It's a visceral experience. The only problem is, without a roof in here, you don't have the structure holding the car together. Now, as you know with C4s, most of the structure is down here in the frame of the car. But when you take the roof away, you compromise probably about 35% of the structure of the car. So what does that really mean? What that basically means is when you're driving it and you go over bumps and things, you're gonna feel a chassis flex, like a shake. So like I was mentioning, when you remove the roof here, you're actually removing about 30% of the structure of the car. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about the structure of C4s, a lot of basically the frame structure is running underneath here. That's why you have the high sills. So, what do you expect when you're driving and you have the roof off on this? Well, what you're gonna notice, this whole area right here, you're gonna feel some kind of shaking kind of going on. And depending on how old your car is and how well it was built, and there is some variability among them, but you'll feel a little bit of chassis flex. And then you'll feel the steering wheel kind of move or shake a little bit, as well as the dash. But don't worry, that's actually completely preventable, and I'm gonna show you how. Okay, the fix to this problem is actually quite simple. It's something called the Targa truss. What this basically does is this provides all the structure that a roof will provide, but give you that open air feeling as well. This was actually made by RD Racing, a guy named David Cooper, who's retired now. But if you're ever interested in finding one of these, I would check eBay for it. And it's a really nice device. I love the welds on it. Has a nice shiny black finish to it. And it operates the same way that the roof panel does, in that it has screws on the back here. And it has an opening for the screws in the front, which actually remain inside the car. So what you do to put this on is you line up the back screws first. And of course, I always recommend you open the door when you do it. Just put it in here and slide it in right there. Now that's not all. You have to wrench it back up. Okay, so going in, you're actually going to put these screws, the back ones, in first. And what you have to do is slide this thing in very carefully. And then it goes in just like that. Now, that's not the end of it. You have to go get your trusty wrench again. And it's basically the same way that you put the roof on. You have to attach the upper ones first. You go right in here, and of course you have to change the setting on this to on. And sometimes with this thing you have to just kind of hold it down a little bit and then tighten it up. You know, it'll take a lot of turns to get started, but just keep going with it. Be patient. Yep, there it goes. And then same thing on the other side. I just pull it down a little bit. Get the thing tightened up. And then of course, move these guys here, turn around to the back. And of course, just like when the roof panel's on, the back screws, they tend to loosen and tighten much quicker. And you don't have to put these on super tight, just so they're firm. Ugh. And then we go over to the other side. And we just go ahead and finish this one. And of course, you could always double tighten them. What I always do is I go back and test the front ones again, test the back ones again. And like I said, it just has to go until it feels firm and tight, just like that. And you can see it's nice and tight. There's no flex or shaking going on. And I'll tell you, driving this thing with the top down is incredible. It really is. It's like, you know, your high performance convertible. And this thing's tight as a drum. I mean, it feels incredible. Give you a little example of what it's like driving this thing with the top down. But one of my races I had the roof down. Here we go, nail it a little bit. Ha, pretty incredible. A lot of fun. Okay, gotta bring it in before it rains. But yeah, the car just feels absolutely incredible in every way. Sorry, I had a wrench that was loose back there. Yeah, it's really something. Yeah, it just feels incredible to drive. Look up, see the sky, feel the wind in your face. And you know, it's a visceral experience that you just don't get if you don't have a car you can remove the roof or convertible. And I'll tell you, as much as I love my Z06, and I'll admit it's a much superior design to the C4, the C4 has these qualities that just don't exist with the C5. I should say with the Z06, because the Z06 is a fixed roof, so I'm not able to actually remove the roof on that car. Now, if I had a coupe, I'd be able to do it. It'd be a different story. All right, so putting the roof back on is just reverse engineering. Slide the roof back on again. Tighten up the front latch pins first, which I've already done. Actually, I haven't done this one right here. Almost. Once you get these guys in and tight, then you go to the back one. Turns out I'm getting this done just in time. It's starting to rain right now as I'm putting it in the garage. Got the roof back on, and it was fun, everyone. I absolutely love driving this thing with the top down. I like racing with the top down too. It's fun. But you know, when it's super hot, it's not always the best thing to do. Or when it's cold, of course, or raining like it is right now. Anyway, I got it in the garage. Thank you, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll get back to you as soon as I can with another upload, all right? Peace out.